It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. It's our year-end edition, and Santa, I gotta tell you, for those of you who can see at home, I've got to tell you that you must have jogged around the world because you are so svelte.
There's nothing svelte here.
Yeah, really, you're looking really
an
good.
Optical illusion.
Well, speaking of checking lists twice, we've got our top 10 list, the top 10 stories of 2022. Now, I usually don't like to try to make excuses, but I am going to do it this time. I knew that we were going to do a top 10, but I thought it was just going to be wedged into like one little segment. And I have here in my hands, Mr. Slagle, the list of 225 communists in the FBI. No, I have here a whole bunch of stories that I compiled over the last week because I was so assiduous in trying to prepare for a weekly show when instead this is going to be a yearly show. But so I'm going to just try and squeeze in some of the stuff that I looked up over this past weeks just to show you I did some little homework because I'm certainly not prepared to remember the year in review because, as you know, when you get in your dotage, you have short-term memory problems and 1 year elides into the next, 1 decade elides into the next. But let's go for it.
Oh,
okay?
man. Is September 11th part of the top 10 this year?
Sure. It is every year because it's my birthday. All right, here is the number 10 story. We're going in reverse order, of course. The number 10 story, according to Chris, our producer, he decided what these are and who am I to argue.
He didn't even
him.
Look at your list, did he?
I didn't have a list.
He doesn't even care what's important to you.
Well, they all would have been so narcissistic. Like I believe the election was stolen from me. Why aren't the Bears talking about me in the huddle? Number 10, violence in Chicago was the number 10 story. And here's a headline here. Christmas weekend violence, 2 killed, 11 wounded by gunfire in Chicago.
That's pretty low. That's pretty low.
Yeah, it was cold. I mean, that had to, that's what happened. Here's how I'll weave in some of my study. It reminds me of how I used to write exams when I was in college. You just fill a blue book with whatever answer you prepared, regardless of the question that was given on the final. That's the way I worked anyway. It worked well enough. But here, I actually had prepared. I listened to a podcast with Jonah Goldberg of The Remnant and a guy named Matt Paprocki of the Illinois Policy Institute. That's a conservative think tank. And it was just interesting, not the substance so much, but the feng shui, as it were, of it, because they must have talked to close to an hour. And it wasn't until about 45 minutes in and right before they decided to talk about Chicago pizza that Jonah Goldberg said he felt compelled to talk about crime in Chicago. But here's Matt Paprocki of the Illinois Policy Institute. You'd think during the election, it was every ad on TV was about crime in Chicago, and it had to be coaxed out of him. And the guy then says, well, he's lived in Chicago for about 20, I think he said 20 years, and he's got a wife and 2 kids, and he has never faced any crime. Now, he wasn't saying there wasn't any, but he said, there are these pockets, the slums are built around the expressways, et cetera, and it's very safe. Now, compare and contrast that to this woman who was on with Laura Ingraham the other night, a Chicago woman who lives in Tony Lincoln Park. There's video of her coming out with her dog, and 2 masked guys, or maybe 1 masked guy, robs her of her purse. Didn't take Toto. And now she's going to be leaving Chicago and is going to permanently reside at her other home in Lake Geneva. But sorry.
So that's the woman. That's the woman that made the political ads, right? That they made political ads out of.
No. The woman.
Or is this a different attack?
This one's different. This one's different from the one where there were several guys that came out of a car. And beat her up. This woman just had her purse taken, but it was still bad enough. But the thing is, so if you
trying to keep up with the neighbors there in Lincoln
so you'll
Park,
see this one. Here's this one. The little doggy isn't hurt, but you know,
little doggy wants to play. Look at that little doggy.
Yeah, no, he just wanted to play.
Are you going to throw that? I'll bring it back for you if you do.
Right. So
look at him wag his tail.
So what's the truth about crime in Chicago? Is it this Matt Paprocki, or is it, you know, what Laura Ingram's showing, which gives the picture that it's ubiquitous, or should I say omnipresent, or is it you know, what Matt Paprocki has experienced in Chicago over the last 20 years?
Yeah, crime in Chicago, it's ketchup on a hot dog and pineapple on pizza.
Totally. And I agree with you. And let's move on to the next one. Number 9, the number 9 story was the loving, what did I do with my glasses? I cannot see here. The loving relationship, welcoming response, excuse me, illegals received at Martha's Vineyard. That was a good story.
That was a good story. I don't know if we should probably put an update to that, because I understand that 3 busloads were dropped off on Kamala Harris's front lawn on Christmas Eve.
Let's go to our reporter, Santa Claus, standing by the Chicago River. You know, and here's the thing about a live shot that you're doing there. It doesn't matter that you're not at Martha's Vineyard. We could throw a slide behind you there. But yeah, 100 people from Texas, I guess, are sent to Martha's Vineyard, are sent to Kamala Harris's house, and
she made them sleep in the stable.
And I saw a headline from WGN News about the Democrats are really upset over this stunt, and I tweeted, "Democrats pounce." That's what the story is. It's Democrats pouncing over this. It's interesting. Yesterday, I was visiting a relative in the hospital, and on the TV in the room, and I couldn't change it because I wanted what the relative had on. CNN Sunday morning show, a very long story about Kamala Harris's husband. Okay, and I believe he's referred to as, I hope I have this right, he's like the second gentleman or the first gentleman once removed or something. You know, he's not a lady.
The first gentleman once removed
or something, whatever his title is. And he's actually a Jewish guy, like me. So, you can make all these jokes, no wonder he doesn't get a word in edgewise or whatever with the vice president of the United States. But anyway, so he, and I'm making smart aleck comments in the room. I would never make them on any kind of public broadcast, about, oh, there's Mr. Kamala Harris, stuff like, I would never say anything like that. But I did notice they were showing, and it was fawning. The whole thing was, how wonderful he is. And, it's great. And all the appearances that he makes. And I'm sure he's got to be more articulate than his wife. So, but anyway, they showed a picture of him from his bar mitzvah, and he's standing at what we call the bima, which is, the podium right where the Holy Ark is. And he's got his hat. I'm talking like you would talk about it. He's got his yarmulke on.
I would call it a beanie.
I'm trying to get it down to the basics for Santa Claus here. Doesn't understand it. He's wearing his cap, and he's standing there, and looks like he's reciting from the Torah, and his parents are very proud standing next to him, and his mother is so hot. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
She's got this, it's really on the border of tastelessness, the amount of cleavage that she's showing. I mean, you're up on the bima there. Judaism, especially in these holy ceremonies, are a lot about, modesty, you're appearing before God and all that. You don't look like you're ready to do your "Let Me Entertain You" number by Gypsy Rose Lee. And I'm thinking, this woman is hot. And then, so I'm trying to make the connection, the psychological connection to him marrying Kamala. And he just, if you've got a mom who's up there and it's displaying her wares like that, you're just going to be that type C personality that's going to marry the inarticulate vice president of the United States. That's my psychological reductionism.
Well, it's apparently Kamala did have talents, though. she might not have been, they might not have been as visible, but she'd had attorney general level talents.
Yeah, obviously. So anyway, we that's number 9. Number 8, the Depp Heard trial. Okay, I mean, I hope Kyle Rittenhouse made this list. If I am not
was
looking
Kyle
down.
Rittenhouse this year? I think it was last. See,
I
the
think so,
years are
Depp
melding.
Heard. I mean,
well,
I know you and I didn't watch more than 8 minutes of testimony combined on this thing. I mean, it's good fun.
But, yeah, all I know was it opened an ability to bring back all my crap the bed jokes.
Can you regale us with one here, Santa?
Well, that's enough.
Yeah, I think so. And anyway, as I recall, the public, the jury, everybody wound up on Johnny's side on this, if I'm not mistaken. So it's justice was served, as it was with Kyle Rittenhouse,
because he was the better actor, obviously.
Completely. Plus, I mean, I'm biased in his favor. First of all, I'm pretty sure I interviewed him once. I think I was more significant than he was at the time. Wasn't he on 21 Jump Street on Fox, like in the 80s? Yeah. And I'm sitting next to him at Comiskey Park. They had them there. They had him and Christina Applegate on my other side. Oh, you know what? No. Now I'm thinking it's the 2 people from Married with Children. Oh, aren't these great memories that I'm having that absolutely...
Oh, the beauty of senility is that you had far more celebrity encounters than you really did.
Hey, if we get down to all 10 of these items here before the show is over, it's great. What number were we on? Huh? All right, that's my Maudie Frickert. To drop a name. Who's Maud Frickert?
Nope.
Jonathan Winter's voice.
Oh, that's character. Right. Yes. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, it was Maudie.
All right, I lead 1-0 here.
That was his transgender character.
Oh, actually, when you think about it, it probably was. All right, Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap year-end countdown. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap, and Tim,
number 7
now to number 7 of the top 10 stories of what year is this again? 2022. The number 7 story, according to Chris, our producer, is guns, and with specific reference to the Highland Park shooting on July 4th, which actually, hit me personally. I mean, I wasn't there, but I have relatives who were there, relatives who were hiding, running away, knew the people.
They were there for the parade.
We're there for the parade. I talked to my sister-in-law for a half an hour after the parade. I mean, she had 6 of her, grandchildren there and everything. I mean, it was really something. Now, you're never supposed to make a decision, based on emotions regarding the Second Amendment. Darren Bailey, who ran for governor of Illinois, made a mistake that day. He's, after the shooting, he said something like, okay, let's move on. I mean, like within an hour, let's celebrate July 4th. And, and we liked, I don't know if you did, when we interviewed Bailey, and how we scored that interview, I'll never know. But we did, and it was great. And he was a nice guy. And, if you could just talk to him one-on-one, he's reasonable, but of course, that was not the way he was portrayed on all the commercials. But so here's my feeling about the Second Amendment. I saw my friend Brad Thor, who's written all those novels, and one a year, they each sell 1 million copies. It's ridiculous. And I used to have him on the WLS show. The other day he tweeted, but he's a big gun advocate, and he tweeted a picture of this latest, looks like an assault style rifle. It's not an AR-15 or something, but to him, it was like, I got to have one of these babies. And I'm thinking to myself, here's how I feel about the Second Amendment right now. And I probably have to turn in my, conservative cred, or at least my FOID card. It's that I'm still in favor of the Second Amendment. Don't like to see curbs on it. I think it's a slippery slope. I know that, the liberals want to entirely get rid of the whole thing. But I don't feel good about being in favor of it. And so that's where I am right now. I mean, because the Second Amendment is not written in stone. It's there isn't a process to repeal it.
Parchment, I believe.
Huh?
Parchment. It's written on
parchment.
It's
in parchment. And
not
whereas
not like the big commandments.
No, right. You can't, have thou shalt not steal is not something that can be overturned by 2/3 of the states or whatever, or the tribes of Israel. So that's how I feel about it. How do you feel?
I think it's a constitutional right. I think people like guns for the same reason they like big off-road vehicles that never leave pavement. It just they like the look of it. And what's wrong with that?
So here's the problem: the look of something versus that you got about 8 kids every year, and that's about it. There's 20 million AR-15s out there, and about a half a dozen of them are used in these killings at a mall, or the schools are the ones that really get you, or a July 4th parade. And yeah, sure, we should have revamp the mental health system in the United States, but that's not that easy. And it's not easy to get rid of the guns either. But it'd be nice if somehow at least they didn't have the advertising that sexed up the AR-15. And I know there's First Amendment concerns.
But that's the thing. But that's absolutely the thing. That's why they're so popular, is because they're sexed up, because they're forbidden. That's right. The more you try to forbid something, the more attractive it becomes.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that there's a guy like Kevin Williamson. The two foremost writers these days, that I have found, who are trying to protect the Second Amendment, are Charlie Cook of National Review and Kevin Williamson, now of the Dispatch. And I mean, they're great if you want to read a defense of the Second Amendment. But even Kevin, when he talks about the Second Amendment, says, well, the liberals are trying to take away Bubba's guns. That's what it comes down to. And I knew a guy once.
Yeah, but Bubba really isn't the problem. Bubba's just going to shoot some cans off the fence, and
no, maybe he's not the problem at all. But
maybe a couple crows that are picking his tomatoes.
No, right, he is not the problem at all. And there was this a relative on my son's wife's side of the family who was a judge in New York, and he said, he was suggesting that we have 2 Second Amendments. One for the urban areas, one for the rural areas. And, it almost makes sense. But yeah, the problem is, are you going to outlaw these AR-15s? Well, okay, no. How about the advertising that sexes it up and makes it attractive to some, whacked out 18-year-old kid?
The advertising, I have never seen an ad. It's like, hey, get yourself an AR-15, kid. Do you want to shoot up a school?
No.
You really want
no, but you want to be
no, they don't need the advertising. That. The advertising is the way the media goes against it. And there's this thing on the left in the media that's been going on for a while. Rush originally pointed out that when 2 cars collided, it was 2 people were involved in an accident. When one was an SUV, all of a sudden the object itself became the perp. And it's the same thing with the AR-15. An AR-15 gunned down 7
children.
Right.
No, and I'm totally,
but that's what it is.
I believe
they personify the object that they despise.
And that's what happened in Waukesha. It was the vehicle that did it. Not the crazy guy. All right, let's move on so now we've resolved that one. Let's move on to number 6. The number 6 story of 2022, according to Chris, our producer, is the Kavanaugh assassination attempt. And I'm going, what Kavanaugh assassination attempt? That nobody covered that. Nobody wrote about
just Fox News, and you know how much you can trust them, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, it obviously did not happen, and certainly was not inspired by the doxing of.
There was no AR-15 involved,
right? So. And there wasn't anything about that, and
so it wasn't a hate crime.
No. So and then we move along to number 5, which kind of goes in tandem with the Kavanaugh assassination attempt. To me, if this is the number 5 story, I can't imagine what the number 1 story is. What, we discovered life on Mars, because Roe versus Wade overturned the Dobbs decision. I mean, we've been waiting for this for 50 years, and that was a big story, a big story.
It'll probably turn the election. There's a really good chance.
That's a good question.
And people said, well, it's women worried about their rights. Heck no. It was the people who changed the election were the young men who didn't want to pay child support. $300 is a lot cheaper than 18 years of food and housing.
It's interesting. I've tried to look at the what are the tabs or whatever on the election results, and I'm still studying it. But there was one interesting statistic. It's that married men overwhelmingly Republican, married women Republican, single men even are Republican. But boy, those single women, they are Democratic overwhelmingly. Mm-hmm. And you got to think that Roe versus Wade being overturned had something to do with generating turnout for them. I don't know, but it might be right. It might be the single guys too. And it's a nice symbiotic relationship between the single men and the single women, and maybe one of the reasons why our birth rate is crashing and we need more immigration. So, all right, let's move to number 4 right here. The Disinformation Board is the number 4 story. Yeah. And I guess this would go in tandem with the Twitter files. Just that, and the latest being that that the government tried to tamp down information regarding the COVID-19 that was contrary to what the CDC had out there.
And there was public outcry. And did they get and basically they just removed everyone's title. They all still work for the government. They all do the same exact thing. They're just no longer a member of the Disinformation Board.
Look, does anybody ever get fired from the government? I think Lois Lerner still has a job there somewhere. But the number 3 story, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, and I'm wondering if where is that right now?
Right?
Yeah. Where? What's the status of that? Our reporter, Santa Claus.
Didn't what's his face? Is it Jack Smith? Is that right? Is that the special prosecutor that was appointed to over? Didn't he take that up?
I think so.
He's taking that up along with January 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for
tax returns.
I'm waiting for Trump to be indicted on something. Well, speaking of which, so we'll go to the number 2 story right now. The January 6th, according to Chris, show trial / recommendation to indict Trump. The interesting thing about Trump being indicted is if the Department of Justice wants to be consistent, and I'm not saying it does, but they just had that Oath Keepers trial, and Trump is a tangential figure in that trial because they're trying to pin it all on the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, or whatever it was, and they did not make the case. Did not try to make the case that Trump was responsible for this. So now are they? I don't know if you have to hold the federal government to consistency. They might be able to plead in the alternative. I'm not sure how that works, but it doesn't seem to be highly consistent. And I mean, there's nothing new with these charges so much. I still think that the thing that really bothers me, and I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for Trump a 3rd time, just like Bill Barr, the former attorney general, might do it, even though he thinks Trump is full of it. It's those 187 minutes, because I was watching this in real time. I don't know if you were, and I remember somebody had tweeted, or I saw a text, they're attacking the Capitol, and I thought, oh my God, there's guns and bombs and everything like that. And then I called up my daughter and she says, no, there's no guns or anything like that. And we're watching, especially that guy with the painted face, looked like he could be at a Vikings game or something. And what about that comeback by the Vikings? Not only the 61-yard field goal the other day, and then from against Indianapolis the week before, but then it looked like a joke. However, as more facts come out, they got within 40 feet of Mike Pence. There were police officers injured, and Trump gave this tepid, was it from the Rose Garden talk saying, oh, please don't do that. It was like with a wink. And it's like, but I really enjoyed it until I was forced to come out here. And that, I don't know if that's impeachable, but boy, I didn't like it when Tammy Duckworth flirted with the idea of let's erase the visages of the founding fathers from Mount Rushmore. And I don't like it when the Capitol is attacked, even if Nancy Pelosi is the one inhabiting it. Your view, sir?
My view is we're out of time.
There we go.
Next segment.
I filibustered as usual. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And
so we're down to number one. Are we going to hear number one?
We're doing the yearly wrap with the top 10. And I was supposed to do like about 4 per segment. And we're only in the 3rd segment. We're already down to number 1. And I think I already tied number 1 to number 4 and already gave it away. But whatever. We'll get to it. But we're not going to give you number 1 because this is the big tease. And let's go to some honorable mentions right here. According to Chris, our producer, and an honorable mention story was that Joe Biden not being able to put his jacket on. I mean, there's so many different things that he did during the year, including trying to shake hands with people who weren't there. What was the latest thing that he said, that he gave his uncle the Purple Heart and that it didn't happen? And
his uncle said he didn't want it. He's and I'm not joking. This is for real. He said, I don't want that medal because the guys who deserve it didn't come back.
Oh, well, okay. Great.
No joke. No joke. Not a lie.
But I mean, with Biden, it's just difficult to understand where the pathological lying ends and the dementia begins. And there's a fine line there. And I mean, but we've known about this forever. It disqualified him.
He had to drop out because he was a plagiarist. That
in 1988 when that mattered. Of course, plagiarism, as I always said, is the sincerest form of flattery, and you can use that line just as long as you attribute it to me. But so that's Biden. Then the next honorable mention story is the war in Ukraine. Who's winning? Are we giving missiles that can attack Russia? There's a big debate.
What was the date of the invasion? It was like February. Is it like almost?
So you're almost coming up on a year, and at first a lot of people didn't think that Ukraine would last.
That's just an honorable mention.
I mean, next to Roe versus Wade, it's got to be the number 1 story. I feel if the number 1 story isn't that we've started putting condos on Mars. I don't know.
I feel like you're doing the rundown of 1916, and we forgot to mention the Archduke being assassinated.
Right now, Chris sends us a note here saying that he's bored to death of this quote unquote war. So I think he would be in the anti-Zelensky. To me,
so these are the top 10 most exciting, not the ones
I guess so.
Not the stories that have gone on too long and are boring.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a typical American response. I mean, we get tired of wars, even ones that we're not even in. We haven't even sent any troops. Especially the ones that we haven't sent any troops in. So we've never really been in it, but we're spending a lot of money on it. All right, let's move to the next honorable mention story, the drag queen story time. In various municipalities. I mean,
yeah, that's
I just don't get it how this stuff is lionized. I mean, you got public school boards in favor of this, and it is just being done. It is just being done to inflame people. That's all it is. It's like, oh, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. Oh, we're showing men dressed like women dancing for kids. Isn't that aren't we scandalous? And then come on, outrage, show some outrage. Tucker Carlson, red face, come on. Absolutely. It is a way of goading people.
It's like the same thing. If you stopped talking about AR-15s, people would stop buying them. And if Fox News stopped talking about drag queen shows for children, they'd stop holding them.
It's kind of difficult. I just saw a commercial the other night. RuPaul has a game show on one of the networks.
Oh, you just learned about that?
Well, no, I mean, I didn't know which. I've
it's
seen
like its 5th season now, right?
Well, but I've seen RuPaul like on Saturday Night Live. I mean, RuPaul's been, completely normalized. Look, I remember when gays were kind of exotic, and then all they wanted to do was start, households on Modern Family. I get that. But yeah, so she's got a game show. No, the cutting edge, of course, with all that now is J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle trying to repel the transgenders, and that's where the battle lines are right now. And it's Harry Potter is where the battle lines are, and that's. But I love it. Like, when that University of Pennsylvania swimmer. And I believe NBC tried to show a picture of him or her, and kind of like with cheeseclothed or something, so that the 5 o'clock shadow only looked like a 2 o'clock one. But
I'm sorry. I thought it was somewhere else that you mean on his face, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, so
I bet she's got a shadow. I bet she's got a speedo shadow as well.
Yeah, well, that's just to enhance your speed in the pool. But it's just and it's almost like you shrug your shoulders, but the liberals kind of deserve all this. They brought it on, So here they fought for women's rights, the Equal Rights Amendment, and its progeny, and now women are taking it in the shorts, as it were, from
the WNBA is going to get a lot more exciting.
And I'm surprised that isn't the number one story. It isn't.
It's going to be more higher scoring.
Brittany Griner coming back to the United States. And it was funny that Randy Weingarten, the teachers union head, the national teachers union head, was, just all over this, just loving how this, gay women's basketball player got to come back to the United States. Meanwhile, I don't think she gave very much publicity to a teacher. Remember, she represents teachers, who was charged with essentially the same thing and was stuck in Russia. I think you forgot who's paying your, the dues to you here, Randy. And we all get caught up in that. We all love that Brittany Griner is back. And enough with the stories about her being abusive to her partners. Please. We need her as a totem. So, all right, let's get to more.
I actually saw something where they did a study, and it's like a vast majority of people can't even tell you what team Brittany Griner plays for.
Which would include me. I mean, I don't know the names of the teams. I know the Chicago Sky. Look,
former sportscaster Bruce Wolf has no idea what team.
Former. But here's the thing. I got some buddies, I play golf with, and they're big sports fans. I mean, they love the Bears and all this. And I have to be honest, they were enjoying the Sky in the playoffs. Wow. And I was just going like, well, where's your man card? And I mean, some of these guys can out hit me too. So they enjoyed it. I mean, I'm just, I'm a fossil. I'll be shuffling off this mortal coil soon. So I can barely get through this top 10 list. So don't worry about me. That's the wave of the future. Women's basketball, even though you'd have to probably force people to watch it. Of course, you get like, there was a sportscaster, a former sportscaster, I think her name is Jamel Hill. She writes for The Atlantic now. And she was saying, well, I think she's the one who said this. Well, the reason Brittany Griner wound up getting arrested was she had to go to Russia to make money because we won't support women's basketball in the United States. So it's our fault that she got arrested in Russia, and she's right about that.
I kind of wish that how they always have bands there when somebody comes back or something, a big event. I wish they would have just played the Star Spangled Banner and see how long they could have kept her on the plane.
You know what? I mean, that would have been the right touch. That would have been the right touch. God bless the USA. All right, more honorable mentions here. The debut of Bruiservations on this. Oh
wow!
On this, which was basically kind of a spoof of a column that nobody cares about because that's what I major in. But Rob Feeder, who held forth for about 4 decades as the fanboy of Chicago media, and you know what? It's just like Brittany Griner. She doesn't realize what she has until she misses it, and that's why she loved having the Star Spangled Banner played for when she came back. I don't know what's going on in Chicago media anymore. Not that it matters, but that I, for example, don't know if Mark Giangreco and Janet Davies are hosting Channel 7's New Year's Eve celebration. For all I know, it could be you, Tim. You've got the red tux on already.
I'm ready to fill in. I got a question now. Was that his Bruce Servations been renewed for a second season?
Well,
or was that the entire series run in 2020?
I think it went on hiatus after about 5 episodes, and there's only so many times you can make fun of Mark Giangreco. There's a limit to it, and can we just can he be like a recurring top story for us every year? Even though I know it happened like last year or the year before. That the guy actually got suspended from his job because he tweeted an insult to Trump voters, said that they were simpletons. And then he wound up getting fired because he sounded like a Trump voter because he made fun of his black female anchor colleague. So, that's being whipsawed. And, Cujo's, as Michael Jordan would say to Mark Giangreco, an all-time honorable mention. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap year-end edition, and coming back in the next segment, the number one story of 2022, we promise. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap with the top 10 stories of 2022, and we're down to the number one story. If I had any sense of the dramatic, probably have a radio gig now. So I don't, and I won't tease this any further. The number one story, according to Chris, our producer, for 2022 was Twitter files, which I believe I tied in with the Disinformation Board as the number 4 story. So we've already talked about it. But that was a big story. And, I, for one, am glad that Elon Musk, this guy could actually, how do you lose your shirt when your shirt is worth $40 billion? But he may have done this. That's great. That's so dramatic. And it's still in doubt, right? Am I right? He doesn't have this thing fixed, does he?
That it's ever going to make, well, it never made any money to begin with.
Right.
He paid $40 billion for a not-for-profit.
But can you think of anybody who let's say he does lose his shirt on this. Can you think of anybody who parallels this riding high in April, shot down in May? I'm hard pressed to think of anybody who's
ever spent that much money for a company then ran it into the ground.
This is Sisyphean. This is the stuff of which myths are made. This is rolling that boulder up the mountain and then having it go all the way down. And you know what Camus said about Sisyphus? You know what he said? You know what he said, Tim?
I have no
Smart
idea.
guy, looks like Santa Claus, all dressed up for his New Year's Eve gig 4 days early. Sure. You know what he said? He said Sisyphus was happy. That's what people don't realize, that he was actually happy because what's the whole point? Elon Musk is not going to sit on his laurels.
Well, wait, let's go back to Sisyphus being happy. I enjoy mowing my lawn, and it's essentially the same thing, isn't it?
No, because mowing your lawn is parallel and rolling a boulder.
It's still a task that has to be repeated over and over and over. It's never finished.
Yeah, but that's not, it's a corollary to it. I would not call it in the same category. You don't have, when you get that done, there's great satisfaction. With Sisyphus, it's like he doesn't even get to enjoy it for a second, but you know what it is? It's the journey. That's what it is, man. It's the journey. Have I just placed out of Yale's literature class right now?
But a dog will bring you back a ball just to watch you throw it again. So isn't there some enjoyment watching a boulder roll down a hill? I think there must be.
Well, now that is attack. That is an angle I have never heard. To enjoy seeing the boulder run over you like it's an Indiana Jones. It's coming right down. Oh, this is fun. I just worked. I just sweated my ass off for 2 millennia rolling a boulder up a hill. It's coming right down. But Tim Slagle says I'm having fun.
But 2 millennia of rolling. I mean, that's going to be a real exciting 10 minutes of roll down.
I did not realize the number one story would be the myth of Sisyphus. I thought for sure it was going to be the myth of Tantalus. You remember that? It's my favorite Greek myth that I like to show off that I know. You know how we got the word tantalize? You know the myth of Tantalus?
No,
I
am learning my mythology.
Sure. I mean, we're not learning about anything else here today. That's for sure. But Tantalus tried to serve his son Pelops up to the gods. Tried to serve him as a dish, as a dinner. Right. I'm not talking like a John Madden turducken. I'm talking human being.
Kind of like Abraham.
No, not really. Well, you are really setting me off in the other direction. Stop. Hey, you're supposed to try to keep me centered on this, okay? Okay. Ed McMahon, you're not supposed to have Johnny Carson go into Aunt Blabby when he's doing Karnak, okay? This boom ba. No. And you're much funnier than Ed McMahon. And would you stop being so funny just for a second? Just hold off. All right. So Tantalus tries to serve. He serves his kid to the gods, and the gods were not fooled, except for Demeter. She ate what was part of his shoulder, and when he was rebuilt by the gods, his shoulder was like made of metal. So, and Tantalus's punishment.
We can build him back better.
So Tantalus is.
We are gods.
I wish I could start high school over again. Forget Edith Hamilton mythology. I want Tim Slagle mythology. As we go. So Tantalus, his punishment was he was sent down to Hades, and I don't know if he's standing in the river Styx or whatever, but he's standing in a pool of water, and he reaches up. There's a fruit tree, and every time he reaches up for some fruit, the wind blows the fruit away. And every time he reaches down to get some water, the water recedes. And that's where we get the word tantalize from. Oh. Okay.
Did it have to do something with the electrostatic repelling of the shoulder?
The
Greeks
forget
didn't
it.
know about the Greeks didn't know that metal would attract lightning, did they?
Well, the metal is in Pelops' shoulder, not Tantalus.
Oh, Pelops. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Really. All right. Next week, we're going to be doing the Iliad. And all right. So
number one is the Twitter story. That's right.
Number one is the Twitter story.
And you think Elon's gonna trash Twitter?
I don't really know. And I'm glad that he did it. And look, the Hunter Biden laptop story is the story that this whole Twitter fiasco revolves around. And I can even see Fox News turned down the Hunter Biden story, and even the guy who wrote it for the New York Post didn't have his byline on it. But the New York Post ultimately did run the story, and they wanted to get publicity in Twitter on it. And there was no good reason not to suspend the account for 2 weeks based on, sure. this relationship, this unholy alliance between the FBI and the Twitter and Baker, who was the counsel for Twitter.
Yeah, and where have you ever seen gossip not reported because it was real?
And it turns out to be real, of course. And there was a legitimate basis for running the story, and certainly Twitter, which holds itself out as being impartial, was not. I mean, and that's all there's to it. So I'm glad that he's cleaned that up a bit. Now, the latest stuff, as we mentioned before, was about the CDC, and them muting that medical opinions. There were medical opinions that ran counter to what the CDC had to say about things like, the shots causing myocarditis or whatever, and they wouldn't allow that. They tamped it down somehow with their bots and their algorithms. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you get a guy like Alex Berenson. Did you follow this guy at the World Cup? This writer, Grant Wall, died suddenly at the World Cup of a heart attack or something.
I heard about it. I didn't really read about it that much.
And immediately I thought, he was killed by the Qatar government or Qatar government, but that's not what happened apparently. And I forgot exactly what he had. It may have been an aortic aneurysm. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact medical terminology. But he and his wife, who was a doctor, a cardiologist, or some kind of highfalutin doctor like that, were very pro-vaccine, very much pro-vaccine. And Alex Berenson, who was the former New York Times reporter, who was very much against the vaccines, and he reported apparently, or was trying to intimate or speculate that this Grant Wall died because of some kind of heart problem associated with the booster. And the guy's wife, and of course she has a vested interest in here because she was in favor of the vaccines, said, no, that's not what happened at all. Well, meanwhile, Twitter was accused of muting, this just came out at the same time, Twitter of muting the likes of Alex Berenson. And my opinion is, well, they shouldn't mute him, but let all the information come out. Let the people who say that he's crazy come out too, and including this woman, the wife of the guy the writer who died. Even if his stuff is misleading and does not inform people correctly, that's my view.
Sure, it's only in the face of under the light of a contrary opinion that veracity can be determined. So.
It's funny. I read that in the fortune cookie I got the other day, but I had it in bed afterwards, which gave it the levity that it needed because you're so heavy. All right. So what else do we have here? Biden's red speech as an honorable mention. Excuse me. Yeah, who decided to have that red behind him? That was
absolutely creepy.
I mean, it looked like something out of the Supreme Soviet, or it looked
like a scene from the movie The Wall. That's what.
Okay.
That's what it looked like to me when.
So that's
Sid started turning into a fascist. That's that's how he would perform his rock and roll. It was on a stage like that.
I'm trying to fake it like I saw that. Look, I once wrote a parody of The Wall, the Pink Floyd song The Wall. It was about Jack Brickhouse. It was Jack Brickhouse, bricks off the wall. I thought for sure this was going to skyrocket me into stardom in Chicago media. Did it for WXRT because Steve Dahl had done a parody of that song called
I remember that.
Kid in the Crawl about Gacy. And everybody loved that. And I think, well, I'm going to do one about Brickhouse, bricks off the wall. And, it just went... and that's why I had to rely on a guy like Steve Dahl to hoist me up and get me into some prominence in Chicago.
You thought that song was going to get you a lunch with Al Yankovic.
Oh, don't get me started on Al Yankovic. I mean, he's fine. He's okay. But I could do plenty of that stuff. All right. Just one final word, an honorable mention to Italy having elected the quote unquote smoke show PM Maloney, according to Chris. And I concur. I mean, we listen to her and it's something about the way she looks and it's being spoken in Italian yet that you don't understand. And she could be telling you, I'm going to castrate you and I'm going to socialize medicine, but you love her anyway. I mean, that's an authoritarian I can relate to.
Hey, GI.
Hey, so that's it for our top 20, top 10.
How about that?
Of 2022. Bruce, Happy New Year, Tim.
Happy New Year, Bruce. See you on the other side.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And Tim,
more honorable mentions that are coming.
I see. Yeah, we have the top 10, and for those of you who want to know what that top 10 is, you can look at the WLIT website, and they will tell you all the Christmas songs they played in the last half an hour, but they won't tell you about what we had as the top 10. The
half-hour Christmas songs, that's about all of them, isn't it? I mean, it's
right. You know what? My wife and I had quite a bit of distance to traverse in the car yesterday. Put on WLIT. I can see why it's number one in the ratings in December. You know all the songs.
Sure.
Every single one. It's, all those Christmas songs that were written by Jews that don't mention Jesus. And, and then you're basically just trying to guess who the artist is. And it's invariably Nat King Cole or Andy Williams. So
you have funny words that you like to stick in, that you like to do.
Oh yeah. Parody. Walking in women's underwear, a favorite. How about you?
Police took my car.
Police took my car. Police took my car. You know what? I liked Jose Feliciano's Light My Fire version as well. It was very good. For among songs that have been covered by somebody else, I think that was a great one. So here's an honorable mention story from 2022. Kim Foxx call out. I'm trying to remember. Didn't that just happen? Refresh my recollection, Counselor. Maybe we'll have a graphic showing it. I think. I think this is where. Was there a Northfield? Northfield is the Jewel at the Glen. You know where the Glen is? Excuse me. It's the Glen is they have a posh golf course there.
Oh, okay.
It's Glenview, Northfield, and apparently the Jewel's food store at the Glen was robbed. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's supposed to happen at a Whole Foods in Englewood, and then they shut it down or whatever. But this one was robbed.
Well, I don't think people that have a propensity to rob grocery stores would shop at Whole Foods.
Right, exactly.
I mean, who wants those off-brand potato chips?
Yeah, totally. Right.
Organic and
there's no marketability for it, you can't get a fence to take that. The Jewel at the Glen was robbed by a gang of thieves in 2 cars waiting outside. The thieves walked out with baskets filled with stolen goods, ran out to the waiting cars, and this was tweeted by the Northfield Township Republican Organization.
With baskets? You mean like Red Riding Hood? They had little wicker baskets that they filled up, and
they stole from the rich, and they're giving to themselves.
Or do they mean shopping carts?
Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly. I don't have the video of it, but when it starts happening in your neighborhood, you might want to rethink voting for Kim Foxx for state's attorney. Although, and that is still Cook County, I believe. Yeah, just barely. Although Lake County might not necessarily.
The thieves walked out with baskets filled with groceries, saying, "This is MAGA country."
Exactly. Hey, speaking of state's attorneys, interesting thing, and this brings us back to the Second Amendment stuff and the Highland Park shooting. Prosecutors charged Robert Cremo Jr., the father of the alleged shooter at the July 4th parade, with 7 felony counts of reckless conduct for sponsoring his then 19-year-old son's gun license application in 2019. It's unusual for a shooter's parents to face charges. I'm reading this from the dispatch summary of this. But prosecutors allege Cremo bears responsibility for supporting the application despite his son's recent suicide attempt and a family member's report to the police that the young man had threatened to, quote, kill everyone, unquote. And, I'm thinking, we talk about when we interviewed Darren Bailey when he's running for governor, we talked about, banning AR-15. He said, well, we don't enforce the laws already on the books. Well, here's a prosecutor who's trying to enforce the law already on the books. I mean, you're not supposed to fraudulently fill out a FOID application or whatever it is. I mean,
how does that work? I'm not really clear. Do you have to have parental permission if you have to need a cosigner if you're under 21?
Look,
for a
apparently
gun?
There's a sponsorship for a gun license application, and the father did that. That's what they're trying to hang him on, and. So, I would ask, all the Second Amendment stalwarts, we're always talking about, well, let's enforce the laws that we have. Is this a law that should be enforced?
I get that. It's just curious to me. I didn't realize it went like that. And also, if you think about it, I mean, he wanted his son to have a license. I mean, that's not, it's like, isn't that kind of good parenting when you say, oh, no, you need a license? Bad parenting is, you don't need a license. I know a guy, we can get it. We don't need a license.
I'll tell you, you know what? You missed your calling, man. You should have been a defense attorney. That's really good. I like that. That's thinking outside the the box of ammo right there. It's very, very good. All right. Next thing is that so there was a story the other day that the Taliban are not allowing women in college. And I was thinking, well, that's a relief. Because I thought when we, skedaddled out of there, they'd be, hanging women, throwing them burning them at the stake, whatever. All they're doing is suspending their university educations. I mean,
they're doing them a favor because, they're going to rack up all that student debt.
Oh, sure.
A worthless gender studies degree.
Right. And it's not like, and imagine gender studies in Afghanistan. I mean, seriously. So you'd think, I don't think the Supreme Court of the United States has jurisdiction over Afghanistan, but the student loan forgiveness based on COVID is going to run out eventually. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm relieved. I mean, now I'm totally looking at at first it was like we're forgetting about the Afghanistan women. And because we're bugging out, we may be giving the Russians an idea that they can invade Ukraine, which will then give the Chinese an idea that they can invade Taiwan. But, I'm a domino theory kind of guy, and that went out with the, the 1960s. So I'm a little bit relieved that the Taliban women, that's all that's happening, is that they can't go to college. Speaking of women, read that after a boom in sales during the pandemic, some high-profile books underperformed this year. Michelle Obama's most recent book, The Light We Carry, had less than 1/4 of the first week print sales of her 2018 memoir, Becoming. Publishers are worried that 2023 will be a bumpy year with fears of recession ahead. I can rip Michelle Obama, quite a bit. I like to do that. But, there's a law of diminishing returns. You come out with one book and then somebody's got to buy another one by you. I mean, really? Didn't Barack Obama have like 3 books out before he was 50? It's
all covering himself.
What else? His favorite subject. How many books, can we pretend that we read?
So what is The Light We Carry? Is that like a Bic? Or is he talking about that app on the phone now?
Yeah. I'm not really sure. There's so many other books I have to read first. I have to finish Infinite Jest, which I'm on page 200 on and have been for the past 15 years. And I have 800 more pages to go on it. There's just a lot of stuff that I have to get to before that. Speaking of higher education, so I don't, Chris, are we allowed to talk about this? Because I know that this station that we're on, the radio station, carries like Purdue Northwest basketball. And it turned out that the Purdue Northwest Chancellor got into a little trouble. Did you see this at the commencement? He went off script and got in trouble because he did like an Asian voice. And I don't know if we have the tape of it, but maybe I'll just summarize it. The guy before him spoke and was talking to his grandchildren or something, and said that he had this made up language, and it kind of sounded Polish, Ritsky, and the kid liked it. But I think the guy who did it may have been Polish, the guy in the robe. But then the chancellor gets up there. Are we going to play this? Because it's
all I can say is.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize Alphonse D'Amato became the Purdue Northwest Chancellor. Anyway, he was condemned. But see, all he was doing was a made up language they had for like his grandchild, and you're not supposed to do
Bobby
that.
Slayton used to do a bit like that. He'd find an Asian person in the audience and say, "Stop me when I say something."
Exactly. And and Louis C.K. did one, which I can't even repeat, but he was imagining that he saw this old Asian woman crossing the street once, and he was wondering what she's thinking. And then he goes into like an old Asian, gobbledygook thing. And I mean, and it's hysterical because obviously he didn't understand what he was even saying, but that's what he thought.
Sid Caesar, was it Sid Caesar that used to do that?
He used to do all the voices.
Any language.
Any language. He sounded much more fluent. He sounded sexier than Maloney did speaking Italian. That's how good Caesar.
And there was also a YouTube sensation. There was a girl, I think, in Scotland that would do the same thing. And it was really funny to hear her do American gibberish. And
I'm always amazed by the guys with the Cockney accents who like the guy who played House, Hugh Laurie, sounding like an American. And he basically sounds like Dick Van Dyke did in Mary Poppins. That's his real voice. And then House, he sounds different. It's amazing because I think that we are unimitatable. You certainly are unimitatable, Tim Slagle. And thank you so much once again. Until next time, Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production. Copyright 2022.